Hi, welcome back to Talkspace, the podcast aimed at educating QT students about campus culture, what's going on, particularly with the election, which has started. We're well in the thick of it. Last week I talked to Vinny from Reach, running as president for Reach, and this week I've got some representatives from the United Students Party. Do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Hayden. I'm the president of the United Student Party.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth and I am the campaign manager and guild secretary candidate.
Yeah, groovy. So, campaigns have kicked off. I believe today was the first day of campaigning. What have you guys been up to so far?
We haven't actually begun campaigning yet. We were still getting notice from the returning officer today whether or not we were truly above or below the line.
Oh, okay.
And then on top of that, there was a ballot draw today, so we got to figure out all of our positions in the paper.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be given to students, or the ballot.
So when are you looking to kick off campaigning? As soon as possible?
Yes. We're in talks with a couple of clubs who will be helping campaign, and we still got to sort out actually printing the flyers and everything.
Yeah, okay.
So it's been pretty hectic. We're just mostly going to get out there and talk to people.
For sure.
Educate them as to our policies and what's been going on.
Yep.
And we've now got to put together quickly a how to vote card to instruct people of how it is they're actually going to see us appear on the ballot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about your policies in a moment, but just as far as campaigning goes, because QT students know to expect the blue t-shirts and the pinky orange t-shirts, I guess, from Epic and Reach respectively. How are you guys going to sort of visually differentiate yourselves while you're out and about? Do you have t-shirts?
No, we thought t-shirts are overrated, frankly.
Okay.
I just want a simple button that says United Party, and we'll have people out in their plain clothing being who they are. We don't think that there's a need for us to say that we're a party, join the party. We're not much of a cult, so we're going to be sticking to just saying that we're a collection of people who believe in a set of policies, and we'll be campaigning as such.
For sure.
I think there are also a lot more technicalities involved now that we are technically ungrouped independents. So we still, all of us independents, except for one other, we're all from the United Student Party.
Yep.
But now that we are no longer a party and have been taken apart by the returning officer or legislation, constitution, whatever, it just gets a bit tricky in terms of how we...
It's been made unclear as if we even allowed to call ourselves United Student Party.
Oh, okay.
We cannot have certain campaigning materials approved because there's no real body, there's no Schedule 5 for the actual party that has been completely valid due to the lack of returning office, due to the lack of Caboolture office.
That sounds like it'll make things tricky for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've got to figure out how to campaign potentially without having any campaigning material approved, and you need to get approved buttons, flyers, skywriting, funny enough.
So you're a coalition of like-minded independents more than a...
Yeah, but I don't feel like we can truly call ourselves independent because we do have a core body of policies, and we do associate with each other quite firmly. So it's a tricky one where the university wants us to call ourselves independent, but anyone with half a brain and knowledge of organisations knows that you cannot technically call yourself an independent if you're so strongly associated with an organisation.
Well,
I think we're also known as the United Student Party, so...
I mean, even if you can't call yourselves that, it's sort of what you're known as.
Yeah. I guess we can only say that we are individuals from the student party, the United Student Party.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Do you want to run over your policies for people at home who may not be too familiar with you and what you're sort of after?
Our policies really come from being mostly pragmatic. We want to be approachable. That was the first thing the party ever decided to be, because we found that Epic are very hard to speak with and they aren't very approachable. On top of that, after getting more involved in the student politics, we found that very few things are transparent.
That's definitely been a major complaint.
I mean, I've I found out that the QT Guild has an ABN, and under that ABN they're charity registered, and under the charity registration they have financial reporting requirements, and you can get to some financial reports through that.
Yeah.
But the recent ones seem to be overdue because they're focused on the election. So we can't even get to financial documents properly even through that route. And it makes things very hard, especially when roles aren't defined very well.
So you're looking to change that?
Yeah, well, I think any party with half a brain should, want to change the transparency of the guild, do proper financial reporting so that it doesn't cause the uni to go into disrepute. And on top of that, we're finding that due to the structure of the constitution and regs, it's definitely left EPIC particularly unaccountable as to anything they do as well. So those are the three core policies of us. The three core beliefs of our party has become be approachable, transparent, and accountable. And we threw dependable in there just for a bit of fun.
Fair.
But we've broken our policies down to three main sections, which is, what are things we're going to directly do for the student welfare? What things are we going to lobby to the university? So that's the stuff that we can't actually change, but we can put pressure on the university to change. And what are we going to do to remain transparent?
Okay.
But the things I'm particularly excited for are in the student welfare.
Yeah, I mean, give us the highlights.
Yeah, I want to chase down having proper student lounges in various faculties. It's actually quite nice in the creative industries in Kelvin Grove. I think more buildings should be like that.
Okay.
But proper student break rooms with hot water, microwaves, and after-hour access to those microwaves and hot water. And I think student lounges like what UQ has is quite nice. And
okay.
QT should have more access to that.
So just as far as that goes, improving the quality of what we've got.
Just
because they are a bit grim.
They've started building prisons that look better than Gardens Point. Yeah.
I haven't spent a lot of time at Gardens Point except for the bar, but it does strike me as a bit austere.
It's very desert of a university at the moment. Gardens Point, it's been a bit forgotten, and I think we could have a food bank at Gardens Point. That would probably help a lot of people, because a lot of people from Gardens Point don't really come to Kelvin Grove a lot.
No.
So, and another one I'm interested in pursuing. It's a bit ambitious, but I was thinking we could set up a service that most people who get counselling have access to, but very few students do, and that is students who are facing particular hardship with family or just deadlines in life. Some temporary accommodation.
Okay.
So they could have like 1 or 2 weeks that they could focus on their studies and have their food sorted for them.
Okay.
And that's something that
would come from guild funding?
Yeah. Now, that's a standard service among a lot of counsellors out in the real world.
Yeah.
And so I think the guild's in a position where it could actually make a lot of partnerships with other counsellor firms. So I think it's ambitious, but it's quite achievable on quite a low budget. And on top of that, if we were able to have facilities that we own to do that, it becomes another source of revenue for the guild, because students don't really need that service all year round. They need it at particular, testing times, and for the rest of the time of the year, other counselling firms would be interested in using those facilities.
Yep.
So it really does, if you think smart about it, get pretty cheap to offer that. And I think it would be possibly life-changing to a couple of students if they could actually just get away from a lot of the hardships in their life, focus on their studies, and get back up on top of things.
I mean, it definitely strikes me as something that is potentially if you're looking to help students with their mental health, it seems like it'd do more than puppies and pancakes.
Yes, and I mean, you can still do puppies and pancakes, that's cheap. I don't know where you get
them mutually exclusive.
I don't know where you get the puppies from. I never understood that. And what happens to the puppies after you're done with them?
I couldn't tell you. I'm assuming it's probably less than great.
Yeah, I think we should get little chickens, because at least then we know that when they put them in the crusher, it's not dreadful.
Sorry?
you can't just have puppies. Like, they got to go somewhere,
I'm assuming they come from a kennel.
That's a darker side to puppies.
Anyway.
I'm just being a twit. Got to be a little bit.
How do you guys, because obviously you've got your policies, which every party has a different policy platform, but how how do you plan on really, in the minds of students, differentiating yourselves from Epic, but to a greater extent Reach? Because I feel like Epic, it's pretty easy to stand apart from them because they've done a lot wrong, or in the eyes of some, they've done a lot wrong. But with you and Reach both as opposition parties, how do you sort of want to position yourself as an alternative to Reach rather than just sort of another?
Well, you see, the more people who've been getting involved with United, my opinion is it doesn't matter how much you try and be another party. Even if you were trying to be, you still couldn't. Each party is going to create its own culture and its own policies and beliefs and its core body of people who are driving things forward, regardless of how you try and swing it. And United is just straight up not Reach, and I believe that because people aren't so easily replaced. And so the people who are in United can drive things in a different direction to what Reach can, for better or worse. It's not going to be the same.
It's just different.
On top of that, United's been put in a position where we do have to justify why we're different than Reach, and that's put us in a position where we're a lot more careful and thoughtful of our policies and how we put ourselves forward. Reach really has the benefit of just being the anti-Epic party, and I don't really see Reach putting out a lot of policies, and to be honest, if we were in Reach's position, we probably wouldn't have put out many policies ourselves. And so I think it's been good that United's been in the position it is, because it's driven us to be a more refined party, I think.
Okay.
And so, again, it's not that there's anything inherently different between Reach and United, it's just that by virtue of the situation, we'll all stand out from each other, even if we tried to be the same.
Okay.
I think also we're really focusing on the little things, because I think we can put out a few really big things that are completely unachievable, but if we have a lot of little things that are manageable, that can make a big difference.
For sure. And I mean, a lot of little things can potentially do more for sort of overall student quality of life than, I'm not saying the big things aren't important, but lots of little things, they build up.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you guys in Reach, a guy who used to be affiliated with you guys, Joseph Mitzi.
Mitzi, yeah. We call him Mitzi.
Mitzi, yep. Defected's probably a strong word, but he started with United Students Party and is now with Reach.
So Joseph founded the United Student Party, and he did so because he believed in student rights, and I can't speak for him, but I feel like he had a set of things he wanted to achieve, and it didn't really justify the need for an entire party. And so there was this situation where we were kind of like looking for more policies and looking for more feedback to sort of give what was a body of an entire party. In the middle of United sort of building up, Joseph had expressed that he wanted to sort of step back a bit and focus in what he really came in it for. And so like he started saying to us that he really just wanted to focus on being student rights VP. And even in United, we started discussing, so, who's going to be the president? And it was a difficult discussion because we all had a lot of respect for Joseph. He sometimes gets received maybe a bit like a young, like sometimes people receive him as not for what he is, but he means well, and he's got a good vision. And with United, it was uncertain as to where we were going, and with Reach, it seemed more certain. And so he moved over to Reach. He had discussions with them on the very early stages, and he decided to move to Reach because he genuinely thought that that was a position where he could do more for the students. And so, Joseph, out of all of this, has probably been doing the best because he's following what he got into it for, and he wanted to get into it for student rights, and he sees Reach as a good avenue to achieve that. To be honest, if Reach wasn't to get in, United were to get in, we'd probably welcome him back, because to him it's not about the parties, it's about the students, and that's what we like.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a pretty high opinion of him.
Yeah, and he's a good guy.
I mean, when I spoke to him on the first episode of this, he just, genuinely seemed like he just wanted to sort of help students and make a difference.
I think that was a good foundation for our party as well, because that was what sort of drew the people in who are now the party.
Yep.
And so I think he's left behind a good legacy in that regard. But yeah, we'd like to have him back if he ever got the chance. So,
For sure.
yeah.
So, you've mentioned that you hit a bit of a road bump as far as campaigning went because of the trickiness sort of surrounding your party.
Yeah, it's been difficult.
Yeah. When you do get out and start campaigning, what are really the points that you're going to be hammering that's a bit of a negative connotation, but like, what are your main sort of talking points going to be when you're trying to, talk to students about what you're all about?
Vote below the line, I think.
Yeah.
I think at the moment we just need people to know that there's a below the line ballot paper that they need to request.
Yeah.
They actually have to request it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that in itself is another problem that we probably would like to change as well, because it's
adds complexity needlessly.
Yeah, and it's not transparent. There are people who have nominated themselves or been nominated, and they should be seen by voters. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, when it comes to campaigning, I think it will mostly that Epic and... It's hard to say Epic and Reach and then talk about history, but there is within Reach the people who bring with them the history of just battling Epic for the last 6 years. And so even though it's been Spark in the past and that, I still sort of see Reach as just filling the shoes that were previously there. And so it's always been a Epic versus Reach sort of thing, which has left both parties in this weird position where they don't really need to have policies and direction. So when it comes to campaigning, I think we'll be putting it out there that as a third party, we've been under greater scrutiny and we need to have firmer policies and a firmer direction that we can promise people. And I think if Epic were to promise to change the guild regulations, to bring in preferential voting and have a set date for nominations, opening and closing, then I don't see many policies in Reach apart from that. Reach just announced today that they're doing online voting. They want to bring that in, but that came from Joseph Mizzi, so again the guy who's really driving a lot of the student rights.
Well, I can speak because I have spoken to people in Reach, and they do have policies. They're just drip feeding them. They're coming out with them.
They should just announce them. I think there's no need to.
I'm not part of the party. I don't know what their strategy is. I think it is worth mentioning that. Yeah. I don't know if it's quite as simple as Epic versus Reach, considering it's not, because Reach was started by people who defected from Epic.
Yeah, well, gives them a good reason to be against Epic.
Yeah. So, going into the election, going into campaigning, what are your hopes? What are your expectations? What are your concerns?
We want to show people what the guild can actually do for them, regardless of which party wins.
Okay.
So, regardless of which party they vote for, the guild's actually in a position where it can do a lot for students, and it
Absolutely.
has been particularly idle for a long time. Epic have done actually a pretty good job at running events. Anyone who runs events knows that that's not easy. So they have done that, but people aren't seeing much progression. They're not seeing much push forward coming from Epic.
They haven't done anything different for.
They just see them sustaining the same game that they've been playing for the last 6 years. So I want to educate students as to what the actual guild can do for them, and that's another thing that our policies do. Like, when you really think about having temporary accommodation, and when you realise that that's actually a scalable solution, if you had proper partnerships with other firms, you could have a lot of temporary accommodation available for students, and I think that would make a really impactful change and benefit to students, and that's something the guild can achieve. And a lot of people don't think that far out the box to see what the guild can and can't achieve.
Well, I think a lot of people, before all of this sort of controversy kicked off, the amount of people who didn't or who weren't aware about how much, like the sheer amount of money that the guild is in control of, I think they sort of...
There's another...
They've got a high school mentality where it's sort of like, it's
just like student council.
Yeah, but the guild is a business, and a lot of people don't realise how much money they've got and how much they can do.
About $8 million a year.
Yeah,
and
it's insane that students don't get more from that.
The financial reports have been really difficult to interpret, but there's $8 million in other assets, which are very odd because then they receive a $1.2 million dividend, which doesn't come out of an actual income. It is more of a something you would receive coming from shares.
Yeah,
and so it seems to
like
suggest...
a return on investment.
Yeah, it seems to suggest those shares, but there may not be. We've looked into it. Could be a trust fund between the guild and the university, depending how it's set up. It could actually be a combination of just other assets. It's so untransparent and such a black box that I think it's of great interest that people have been completely uneducated as to what is $8 million in other assets. On top of that, the next thing that's suspicious is $4 million of that is liquid, which means $4 million is purchased and sold each year by the guild. Sometimes at a loss. This year it was at a loss. So it really shows that the guild is operating. And when I see like, woohoo, there's an extra 8 microwaves on campus, let's all celebrate.
Yeah.
I
saw Epic trying to be like...
It's like $1 million a microwave.
Yeah, they were trying to like celebrate the fact that there were microwaves on campus, and it's like there's 6 per... Like, I think there's 6 at Kelvin Grove.
Yeah.
6 or 8.
Really, I'm not seeing much output, you know?
And I mean, considering the fact that the people who form guild get paid full-time salaries to do their... Which I think a lot of people don't realise. They think it's like volunteer work.
Well, yeah. They definitely have the hours that they can put into it to see the outcomes being achieved.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that it's paid though, because you kind of do want people...
It incentivizes them
to actually do their job, yeah.
So at the end of the day,
I think that, to be honest, when you look at the UQ Guild as well, and other guilds of other universities, it paints an interesting picture because the QUT Guild isn't actually performing as well as other universities of the same size. I mean, I think, what was it, UQ was doing 12 to 14 million a year, which, when you talk about gross income and 8 mil, it's a difficult thing to say because you do have overheads and expenses. Like, the bar isn't cheap to run. It's got electricity and it's got space.
I imagine the bar is a huge money sink.
Yeah, I mean, it probably makes them a profit, but it probably, that profit is probably very small compared to the money that it has to gross.
Yeah.
You know, so like it may gross $1 million, but if it only made 20,000 profit, then that's only 20,000 that's useful.
Yeah.
But if the QUT Guild were to perform like other university guilds and pushed its income up to 12 mil, you may only have like 20,000 that's really free at the end of the year. But if you push that up, the guild could have like an extra 4 to 6 million available that it can actually do stuff for the students.
For sure.
So I think there's an interest in someone who's actually got a vision for enhancing the guild's capability of what it can do, and actually has an interest of pushing the guild to actually performing for the benefit of students. And I think that's really what we're trying to get at with our policy, is that we can lobby the university to keep the air conditioning maintained, actually have lecture tables that aren't catapulting your computers out of them, which is...
The fact that they're still there does baffle me.
That does baffle me, because university students, when they first join uni, they usually have some savings that they've put together to get like a new laptop, and they go, I'm going to have this laptop for the next 3 years, you know, and they'll put down like $3,000 on a good laptop, and then they meet the Z block lecture tables, which will destroy a computer per lecture.
Yeah.
And that is
happen.
Very detrimental to someone. I can't imagine the amount of money wasted on IT in those tables.
Because, I don't know, five years ago when I started uni, I just did that. I put about $3,000 into a laptop, and I was lucky enough to never have that happen to me. But if it had, I would have
been devastated.
dropped out.
Yeah. it would be the most devastating thing, and it's a surprise that those lecture tables are still there.
Yeah.
So I think we should really hammer the uni to change them.
So your end goal is spreading the word about what the guild can do for students.
Yeah. See what the guild can actually do for you. Consider the things in the university that are slightly hostile to students, like those lecture tables, and make the university a more livable space. And I mean livable. Like, you need to be able to focus on your studies without having to worry about... I mean, I went through the routine where I had to spend 4 hours travelling a day just so I could come in, study, and then head home.
Yeah.
Pack up, sit down, pack up, sit down. And you only get 2 to 3 hours study in a day. And it's defeating. And so you want a place where you can come in, you can make a cup of noodles and do your studies. And we need to help people get the space to do those studies, such as having more study spaces. Student lounges would be great because they're more comfortable. You don't feel like you're pushing yourself so hard. And, well, the other thing we've considered in our policy is that if we do have more food being cooked on campus, we want to manage smells as well. So have some extraction, some extraction out so that it doesn't smell up the place. So we've thought it through, and we think we can do a lot of good.
Very good. Well, that's about time for today. Thanks, guys, for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to see how you guys go, because I didn't know too much about you before.
Yeah, it's been hard to get ourselves out there with all this, dealing with the tribunal and everything.
Yeah, that's definitely sucked up a lot of the attention.
I wish there was more time, because I sound like a lunatic trying to hammer through this.
It's not ideal, especially, the 1 week election is not perfect.
Yeah.
But got to make do with what you've got, I guess. Anyway, that was episode 3 of Talk of Space, educational podcast, and cluing people into what's going on campus and with the election. Hope this has sort of encouraged you to be more engaged, or at least more aware of what's going on at your campuses. Student politics and campus culture is not really something to be taken lightly. It's all pretty serious. So
do have fun with it though.
Yeah, it's fun, but don't be one of those dickheads on Talk of Space who is just like, who cares? It's like a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people care. But yeah. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Happy to have chatted to you.
Do we do a handshake or?
We can do it. We can do it.
Isn't there like a media no handshake thing? Like, you ever watch PewDiePie?
No.
Watch PewDiePie.
Do not do that. But anyway, yeah. See ya.
Cheers.